and welcome back to the Irish Hunting Podcast, the number one place for your hunting, fishing and country sports stories from around the world. Stick on the kettle, crack open a beer, pull up the feet, relax and enjoy. Hello and welcome back to episode 119 of the Irish Hunting Podcast. A day in the life in the DMU. This week we chat and meet with Mick Craven, a recently appointed Deer Management Unit Coordinator for Wicklow. We shadow Michael as he goes about his daily business up in the Wicklow Hills, and we chat with some of the farmers impacted by deer in their area. Enjoy this one, folks. This episode of the podcast was brought to you by Game Cooling Ireland for all your game cooling and game prep needs. Visit gamecooling.ie. And we're off. Mick Craven, thanks a million for coming on and for taking the time out of what I no doubt surmise is a busy day in your schedule. Thanks a million for inviting us into your world.
You're very welcome and good to have you, lads. And look, it's great to have someone that we can, pass our message through to the hunting community.
Yeah, and vice versa. It's great to be able to, I suppose, get through. Obviously, we've a lot of questions from a wide range of hunters, both positive and negative, from around the country. So what we're hoping to do today is probably shine a little bit of a light on, further to the podcast with Mick Keegan, that is. Out of that came another tranche of questions and queries and concerns. And we said, look, ideally, if we could maybe shadow yourself and get to know a little bit more about the work that you guys are doing and the challenges you're facing on the ground. So it's great to be able to do it. Before we start, Mick, a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind. How the hell did you get into this gig, and how did you start hunting? You're a hunter, obviously.
Yeah, I am a hunter. Yeah, how the hell did I end up on the east side of Ireland? Maybe. So I'm from Roscommon originally, but I joined the army in '99, and then I ended up in the Curragh in 2000. Done special forces selection, was lucky enough to be successful, and I spent 21 out of 23 years in the military in Kildare there. Brilliant time. Met some great people, and one of those, I would have shot competitively inside and outside of the army, so always had an interest in firearms and the competitive side of shooting. And one of my colleagues, who was a avid hunter, introduced me to hunting, what 12, 13, 14 years ago or something. I just got hooked on that, and was always interested in. Then I had moved in when I retired, moved into a couple of different fields, and then seen this opportunity and grabbed it with both hands. Was lucky enough then to get this job, and especially in Wicklow. It's probably, when we look at the high density of deer, it's probably the epicenter of the country. And, I do love a good challenge. So
no better place to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to reach over, and I'm not making a move on you now, Mick. So I'm just going to shine that little. There you go. Now that's
Cheers.
More in the way we're talking here. We're in the middle of Deer Central in Wicklow. So yeah, I suppose, look, that's a good marrying of the two. You're obviously an outdoors man, given your army background and special military training and so on and so forth. So I suppose it's a nice transition. You get to keep your foot on the ground a little bit. Very much so, and spending many days, nights and weeks in Wicklow, I know the ground fairly well. So look, it's great, and the people, I'm meeting a lot of new people throughout this job, and it's fantastic, What is your title, Mick? It's your Deer Management Unit Coordinator, am I correct?
Correct, 100%.
So I got it right.
Yeah.
I was worried I was...
No hassles, you're all right. No, you nailed it, Anto. And I'm coordinator for Unit E1 and E2, which is effectively all of County Wicklow, and it takes in South County Dublin, East Kildare, Carlow, and a little portion of North Wexford.
Wow.
There's no effective boundaries, so it's wherever we make contact with a landowner or hunter, roughly within our area.
Okay.
And if that individual lives or hunts elsewhere, we could just pass them the details of the coordinator in that area on.
Okay, so give us, I suppose, we'll cut into the middle of it, I suppose. What is a deer coordinator? What is your job? What's your job description? What do you do?
Yeah, good question. So, I suppose coordinator is the key in it. So what we're trying to do within each unit is we're trying to set up deer management groups. It's all new. It's the first time something like this at this scale has been started. So we are, kind of not going to get it right every time, but we start trying to construct groups with landowners and hunters. And the main reason is to create collaboration, cooperation, communication, which is vital, especially when we have people out with firearms. Safety is paramount, so creating good communication is key. And the whole purpose is trying to reduce the impact of high deer densities in those areas.
Okay. I suppose, look, we're as part of our plan today, we're going to get out a little bit on the ground with you. We're going to visit some farms that are impacted and kind of see, because obviously Rob and I, we're not au fait with a lot of the problems that farmers around this particular area would be facing. Obviously we do a small bit of shooting in Wicklow, so we kind of a little, but in terms of what you were talking about this morning here, there's some large scale problems up here, isn't that correct?
There is definitely. There's certain areas with very high deer densities, and I have to say, as regards to some organisations, definitely point out IFA have been fantastic for me, making connections with landowners. I would have done briefs at AGMs and committee meetings, and the interest from the landowners has been fantastic. They're so helpful. Look, they have an issue. Their livelihoods are affected by the high densities of deer. So it's very important that we can work with them, and they've been really good. As well as the hunters that are on their property has been very helpful as well.
And I suppose sometimes we forget as hunters that it's not all about us. It really does affect the farming community. Like if they have a farm that's after being closed down due to TB, like they're out of pocket straight away. So if we could just take ourselves out of it for a second and ask you some sort of pointed questions. This is a two-pronged question.
Yeah.
One, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing on the ground? And two, do you think that we are fulfilling our commitments to the EU in terms of deer management?
If I can go back to front with that,
Yeah.
I can answer your second question first.
Yeah.
Well, look, this program was started before that list was published.
Yeah.
So look, it's a new program. It's going to take time, definitely. But I think it's a great start. Look, the reason for this, me having this job and FRS fulfilling this contract, is because there's a problem, So we need to deal with it, and we need to change our methods, because obviously, look, there was a lot of factors that got us to where it is, you know what I mean? But it is an issue, and we need to look at the way we do business to try and fix it.
Yeah.
The first question, what are the biggest challenges? Mindset, the message. There's a lot of speculation and I suppose assumptions that we're trying to take something from people, especially the hunters. We are not at all. In actual fact, we want hunters to shoot more deer. So we don't have the authority. As coordinators, as FRS, we have no authority to go on anyone's land or put anyone on anyone's land, or more importantly, take anyone off anyone's land. That solely stays with the landowner. We work with the landowners, we guide and advise them and give them help where needed. And if they ask me for the recommendations for a hunter or number of hunters, I will pass it on from the database, 100%. But trying to communicate that to people is difficult. There's still this idea that we're trying to take hunting away. You know, we're bringing in shooting teams. That is not true. There is nobody from...
I know. We have a list of questions.
Cool, perfect, brilliant. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. So we are going to hit you with some of them. But you talked us through a deer management unit where we are here. Can you just explain how it works and the nuances of it all?
Yeah, absolutely. From I suppose it was early enough. I suppose it's important to... Michael would have covered a lot of this, the timeline, but I started in June 25, and I got in contact with a landowner here in this area, called out, looked at, you know, they explained the situation. They have hunters and have had hunters for years there. Brilliant. And they then were kind enough to connect me with their neighbouring farmers. And then that farmer then would connect me with their hunters, and it grew from there, you know. What is important to say on that is the same hunters that were there are still there. They're still hunting the same ground, but we've created that communication chain now between all the landowners, between then the landowners and the hunters, so that, very importantly, like I said earlier, for safety, that if one landowner has their hunters coming on today or tonight, if they're on Section 42, that they can communicate that to their neighbours, so that there's no chance of people hunting in close proximity, you know, without knowing it, you know, so that is good.
And in terms of pressure on deer, that close of an area, do the hunters get to communicate with each other? Let's say I'm hunting a particular farm, push them off that farm. How does that work?
That can happen. Not everybody likes everybody else.
Okay, yeah.
And that is life. Do you know what I mean? There is deer management groups where there's fantastic collaboration between individuals, hunters and landowners, and there's some that are just not. But you know what? In every walk of life, in every job we're in, look.
But ideally, it's all about collaboration.
Ideally, that is fantastic. You know, the more collaboration we have, the better it's going to work. You know, if the landowners communicate to each other or to their hunters what's going on, or where the movements of the deer are, where the patterns are, because we all know as hunters and as humans, if you're being shot at, you're not going to be there. You know, and the deer are not stupid. When they're getting heavy pressure, they move. And if the hunters can then communicate that to the next hunters, well then, you know, we can manage then the numbers better, because we have a better appreciation of what's happening on the ground.
Very good. I think, look at the buzzword, and we would consider ourselves one of them. We're ordinary hunters. We've no, Rob and I think I speak for Rob as well, we're hobby hunters. You know, we go out, we shoot a few deer for the freezer, we go after a couple of trophies if we can, but we're hunting enthusiasts. And I suppose, as are the majority of hunters across the land, I suppose the biggest thing that we've probably heard over the last while, since the last podcast and so on, has been, you know, this is, you know, and I think you just touched on it there, the biggest challenge, but I'm going to put it to you, the biggest thing we're hearing is that, you know, this is a ploy today to take hunting away from the ordinary man, you know, the ordinary hunter or the ordinary woman. So that's, I suppose, that it's challenging your side, but it's also, what would you say, something that we're hearing quite regularly on our side. And I suppose that's the biggest void to try and fill correctly, isn't it? Very much so. And look, and I suppose I appreciate the fact that you guys are interested in this, and this is going to help, you know. But that's 100% not true. We are not taking anything from anybody from a hunting perspective. Yeah. Nothing, you know. And, you know, I see or hear all this going on, and my only answer is like, show me where this has happened. Yeah, you know? Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. We're, again, up until this morning there, we were getting loads of messages, and we're trying to add to some of the questions we have here, which we'll discuss in a minute. But I think the general consensus is, you know, like, I'd be of the opinion, we're now recording this podcast. This is going to be on a platform for all to see, for all to hear. The same as when Mick Keegan came on. Yeah. You know, it's there. His answers are there. you guys are accountable for that. So I can't imagine, and I hope I'm correct in it, because we've only met each other, so I can't, you know what I'm saying, but I can't imagine somebody would come on and commit to something and then
do something else.
You know, you want.
Yeah.
So that's why speculation. I'm always a firm believer. Meet someone face to face, eye to eye, ask them the question, and if you can, record it, which we're doing. So we have it forevermore. I presume, Mick, just chatting to you earlier on, you've a good bit of hunting land yourself, and I think that the biggest thing with the job now as well, I take it that you're not after any more ground to shoot.
No, and I have plenty of land to hunt. My problem is lacking the time to hunt it.
Yeah.
You know, and it is difficult. And from my own personal views, I think it would be very unprofessional, if I'm doing this job and I'm trying to gather hunt permission. Like, it has not happened to date.
Yeah.
You know, I think that would send a very bad message, first of all, for the success of the whole program. And, you know, no matter what I kick into, you know, I give it 100% commitment, and I want to see success as well as this program. I would love in 4 years' time to see. We're not going to get everything right. Nobody can. You know, we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to try and learn from them. And I'd love at this stage now, 3 years down the road, that if we've seen successes from this and say, right, well, we've done this right. Brilliant. Now let's kick on from here. And maybe there's going to be areas where it didn't succeed. Right, look at that, analyse it, see where the gaps are. Let's change something and let's try and fix that as well. You know, that's what would be great from my perspective.
Yeah, I think we touched, we were having a coffee just before we started, and I think you were showing us the maps of, and we're not going to give out any of the locations because obviously it's there's hunters here with permissions up here, so we're not going to compromise anyone's hunting. I think that's the holy grail, isn't it? You never mention another man's land, but you just showed us an overview of a satellite view of some of the areas, and we can see the density in forestation and so on. And I think one of the, and we hope to maybe visit, is there's certain areas now they're trialling new ways of forestry with
CCF, continuous cover forestry, and it's I had mentioned to you there, I'll give a plug to Pro Silva, but they do run some little workshops on deer management in forestry, and they're fantastic. There was one there last autumn down near Lara, Paddy Purser and Faith Wilson, fantastic educational evening, you know, on the way they manage forestry or manage deer within forestry and the infrastructure they put in for the hunter to make it more efficient, effective, you know, building access for hunters so they can do their job more effectively. Really, you know, it's really interesting that way, you know.
I think that personally, like that's one of the, you know, it really grabbed my attention when we spoke about it there, because I think we've all hunted abroad and we've all kind of seen the benefits of the collaborative approach between farmers, forestry, government bodies and the hunter, you know, when they're all working in unison. We see it especially on the continent where that is the case, and they manage it very, very well, and they have a great standard of deer, they have a great standard of hunting, and it's a good approach. I think that if that was the way it was to go, personally, I'd love to see more of that. I think that can only be a good thing for both for hunters and
we don't have it too bad in Ireland. Like when you look at certain other countries in Europe, you know, to become a hunter here is not massively difficult. You know, you go to other countries and you have a long, strict process about training, mentorship, you know, licensing, permissions, ground. Like, we have it pretty good. Do you know what I mean? We do our hunter competency or equivalent. We get our firearms license, we get a permission, and we have a 6 month or more deer season with no bag limit. Once all you need is permission. We're not doing too bad now.
We have it fairly good.
We're not doing bad.
Considering we keep on talking about Hungary, it's because it's what we know. But some of them have to go to college for 4 years. Yeah.
I've hunted abroad myself. New Zealand is probably the only other place that I've hunted that is not as strict as here. Do you know? I've hunted in Norway and other places like that, and it's pretty strict, as regards, for example, when you shoot your animal in Norway, you have to immediately bring that back to an appointed person in that area, and they will check it and weigh it and record the data from it, and you didn't have to record any sightings you've seen and numbers and directions of travel and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
We're not doing bad.
No, we're not. It's very interesting about the forestry habitat. I know very little about that, so I probably will sign up for that course.
I would recommend it. I've learned more about forestry in the last 6 months than I had in the previous 48 years. But it's fantastic.
You probably spent most of your military career
I
in the
did,
forest.
yeah, crawling through it. But no, it was really, really good. And I would love some of the landowners, like as in farmers, whether it be sheep, cattle, dairy, I'd love for them to go and hear some of the info that's coming from these. It's very interesting to look at the way that they approach their management on their farms, There's a lot of lessons to be learned, from each.
And just talking about landowners, are you meeting much resistance from landowners?
I am meeting practically zero. Like, there is a small percentage of landowners that are saying, do you know what, we're happy enough with what we're doing. But I mean, it's like very, very, very small. Majority of landowners are dealing with, they're super happy to have a program now happening, They're super happy to have a human being that they can ring or approach or call to the farm and help them with whatever aspect of the issues they're having with deer. They're brilliant, really good.
And are they coming with their own hunters already in place?
Yep. I don't think I have met a landowner, that doesn't have a hunter. So if I just give you a quick example, and how the mechanism would work, that whether it be through personal interaction at a meeting or a brief or whatever, or a phone call or an email from a landowner who knows about the program. And what I like to do is I like to call out and meet them face to face, and look at the ground, because that's the way my brain works anyway. And they could have 1 or 2 or 5 hunters already on their land. And from the very start of the program, the way I'm looking at it is those hunters are there. So that the respect needs to be given that way, because they're there already, So I think it's only fair that we look at the program now and bring those hunters with us, because they're the ones with the permission on the ground as it is, and they have the relationship with the landowners. But I will say, the way we're doing things, we need to be better. Like I said earlier, we're trying to fix a modern day problem with old day methods.
Yeah.
What we done 20 years ago, we didn't have this density of deer 20 years ago, so, and there's a reason we now have this density of deer. Maybe we weren't doing things properly,
There's lots of factors, I'd say, like COVID, like I said, COVID probably fed into it.
There was a lot of factors, like, venison price, and I definitely remember a time in, 07, 08, up for many years, where there's a portion of the Wicklow you would not drive at night time.
Yeah.
Because
there's still parts like that.
There is, and that's not right either. But what I do think is, look, we're not going to take anything from anybody. You're not going to lose anything being part of the program, but we do need to do things a little bit better. And there's a lot of aspects, and this goes down. There's a good few people have mentioned the demographic of hunters, and I think it's probably a fact, that the demographic is getting older. There doesn't seem to be as many young people coming into the sport. So a lot of people had mentioned an education portion to the program, a mentoring portion, which I think is good.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. Now, by what mechanism, we don't know yet, but it's definitely something. If we don't do it, where will we be in 10 or 15 years' time?
I think that's across field sports in general.
Yeah, I think so.
There's very little new blood coming through.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. As Mick Craven, can you give me shooting permission on ground?
Unless you want to hunt in a 15 feet by 15 feet estate. That is the only permission I can give. No. FRS has no authority to give any hunting permission because we don't own. Only the landowner has the right to give permission to hunt. Okay. That is it. And we have no influence on that. But if a landowner does approach one of the coordinator and say, oh, do you know of a hunter or hunters close by? Yeah, we would pass on details. Absolutely, if we're asked. And what we are saying to landowners is, and again, it goes back to the different methods, meet that hunter face to face. Bring them to your boundaries. Physically show them your boundaries.
Yeah.
Show them where the routines of the deer are, where the highest impact is, what the rules of the farm is, what the access is. Can you draw? It all depends. Like, do you have a dairy farm with virtually 100% vehicle access, or do you farm sheep on a hill? What do you do with the Grollock and These are all very specific to that particular land.
Yeah.
So we're saying, communicate the rules of the farm. So there is no doubt, where you park, where you can't park.
And
licensing, insurance, all of that.
Should do that. Likewise, like if they come across TB on a farm, they should be reporting it straight away to them.
Correct.
It's
correct.
Just communication between both.
Vital. And look, there is stories, and I've heard them, about farmers going down with TB and then they meet a hunter and the hunter's, I shot this one 3 weeks ago and it didn't look great. And you don't want to hear that.
No.
Communication is massive. What we are asking, because we are asking hunters to shoot more. So what we're saying, it's very important that the landowner communicates to the hunter that when the hunter is deciding to go for a shot, that they message or call the landowner.
Yeah.
Then when they're leaving the land, they message or call them and say, listen, I'm finished. I did or I didn't shoot an animal, where I shot it, as in what portion of the farm. So the landowner has a good appreciation of what's actually happening on their land. And as well, if you've 3 or 4 hunters, to deconflict that for safety. Yeah. It's important.
I see that text message, that actually, it put someone's mind at ease there today for myself.
Yeah, I was talking to, sorry if I couldn't cross you, Robert.
You're all right.
A lady last night who is very interested in the programme, and that's the systems that she runs on her farm, and she knows if she hears a shot or sees a lamp or whatever, well then that's someone who's now trespassing.
Yeah.
Or on many occasions it's been the case, and then she would ring the hunters and say, are you in such a place or whatever? No, well then. And I suppose this is a part of a deer management group that we hadn't really probably thought of, but it's coming into being a very positive, is like your community watch. You know, if you've a good network with your neighbours and hunters, and as hunters, we're out in the fields, we see stuff going on that others don't see going on, and that now creates a network for community watch.
Yeah, it's just from my perspective, it wasn't actually even the situation myself and Anto found ourselves in was there was it wasn't even the landowner, it was a neighbouring house, and he was obviously a hunter in the past, had scared his kids, and he wasn't particularly happy. But we were out hunting, he approached us, he was nice and polite, all like that, but he said we weren't welcome, so he left it a week or two, and then we called back up, had a conversation to come to some sort of, what would you call it, Anto? Compromise. And his biggest thing was his kids, and if we were out hunting. So we simply said, right, we'll stay miles away from your property and we'll text you. And see that text put his mind at something
Simple.
at ease.
It's
something
simple.
brilliant.
And can I say, what a brilliant approach from your point of view. Do you know, just not create confrontation at that heated point in time at the initial meeting. Do you know, just step off, have a think about it, call back up and talk through it, come up with a compromise. And it's something that I came up, and there's nothing wrong with there being, look, these people own this land, whatever portion, farm, whatever they have.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have rules. Like if you're part of a gun club or a gym or a soccer club or a GA club or whatever, there's rules. And, you know, you bring your kids to the creche, there's rules and you need to sign a waiver or whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's just life.
Do you know what
I
struck
mean?
a chord with me? He said, if I turned up outside your house firing shots, how would you like it? I was like,
It's a fair point.
That's a very valid point. Now, he was a gentleman when I talked to him today.
Brilliant.
So
brilliant.
next time I'm up, we're going to pop in for a cup of tea,
Appro-
myself and Anto.
Approach is key, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's what's coming out. I see coming out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I have to commend yourself and Mick and Mick, that you always answer the hard questions. Like, you don't shy away from it. So I'm going to start by hitting you with a hardish one that was asked there today. Has FRS ever brought in foreign hunters under contract?
No. I don't know where this idea come in. Michael would have touched on, I'm pretty sure, on the podcast as well. Our job in FRS and as coordinator is not shooting deer. It's coordinating. You know, it's project management from Michael's point of view. We're looking then at, you know, we have the app. We're hoping to run it out live shortly for data collection. The Irish Deer Management Strategy Group, they have put a proposal to the department for extra funding for an incentive. We're looking at trying to create a quicker, more efficient, better mechanism for hunters to get their carcasses into the food chain. You know, that's the idea of the program. We don't shoot. I do in part-time, like as in my own time at the weekends or the evenings, I hunt, like when I'm not working. But no, we don't. The FRS does not do that, no.
I suppose just one of the things there was sceptical, and I'm trying to put myself in. If I was listening to the podcast, you know, what would be some of the lads shouting down the radio? Because it was one of the things actually in the last one where we asked for a list of questions to be sent in. We asked the questions, and then people were giving out to us about the questions we didn't ask. You know, so you can never win sometimes. But one of the things there, look, obviously you mentioned you're meeting very little resistance from the landowners. The majority of them would have hunters on the land.
Large majority. Into the high 90%.
Yeah. So then, skeptical mind. Then, sure, what's the problem? Why do we need to do anything? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know where I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Is it the case that are we, from what you were saying there, that FRS are trying to put some parameters and systems around existing hunting permissions, or is it a case like from the, what would you say, from a hunter's perspective, especially the hunters that are worried? You know, this is the question they're going to be asking, so I'm going to have to ask it. Is it a case that there's a shove on, there's a land grab on here in terms of preferential treatment being given to hunters to hunt certain areas?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is no preferential treatment whatsoever. We can't grab land. Do you know what I mean? That is down to the authority of the landowner who gives permission. You know, that's not what we're doing. I suppose if I can slightly jump into a point, and also a coordinator's job, and this is a big one, is not to gather hunting permission for other hunters.
Yeah.
Do you know, it seems to be the case that people are a little put out that I haven't rang them to give them a load of hunting permission. Do you know, that's the hunter's sole, that's their responsibility to go and gather, not the coordinator's responsibility, which is important. Are we putting systems? I think, we are. Well, like the likes of the app, we don't, if you look at what systems are in place already, we don't have a national census deer. that app that has been developed, you know, we're trying to gather data with that. At the end of the day, it is a government contract, and we have to show progress.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to measure that in some metric.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is fair enough. I think, look, I'm not going to ask that question again, because it's a question that obviously I want to ask, because it's a genuine concern for.
Of course.
I have the benefit of meeting you and chatting to you before and so on and so forth, and sometimes we can take that for granted. If I'm down, like we're in the Wicklow Hills here, if we're down in Mayo or Kerry or somewhere listening to the podcast, and you're saying, Jesus, what's going on up there? Is this coming down? And especially if you read some of the
Unfactual information.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
So it's you said it now. That's on record now.
Yeah,
Mick, you know?
I said it.
Yeah,
That's fine.
But I suppose, look at the second point there is what Rob has said. Like, and it was Rob's idea there this morning. We backed away from that situation, and I wouldn't mind. There was a beautiful stag up there. I'm not just saying, right? But it was, and when the man came over, we put the guns away.
Yeah,
it was pissing rain, and Rob got out. I got back into the van, so it wasn't a 2-on-1 situation.
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
So just a little bit of a, what would you say, guidance for other hunters. So it was unconfrontational, disarmed.
And look at the outcome.
Yeah, we backed away, and 2
Yeah.
weeks where went back up this morning, not dressed in hunting gear, again 1-on-1, and it was a very, very productive. I suppose that's the type of parameters you're talking about, and maybe as well. And I'm not saying this, but like, sometimes as a hunter, and I can include myself in this, you know, we take things for granted a little bit, because as you said, we have it relatively easy over here. We don't have to go through the various educational programs and stuff that's in other countries, and because of that, I can imagine there's a little bit of fluidity there where lads kind of maybe push the boundaries from time to time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I know what you mean. And look, at the end of the day, if you're hunting a certain way for 20 or 30 years, and then some random guy like Mick Craven comes in and wants to change it, like, there's going to be pushback. And not that I'm trying to change how somebody hunts, but just looking at the approach, do you know? Like, you can see why there'll be a bit of kickback. But I suppose something I thought of there was interesting. I've had a number of phone calls from hunters over the past 6 months with the first minute of the phone call was talking about bringing in teams of hunters in to shoot land, and the end of the phone call is like a good chat once I've given them the facts of the program. Like, they've been listening to hearsay and somebody's been in their ear and planted little seeds, and then they have their back up and they give me a call, and then once I give them the actual facts of the program and what we're trying to do, they're totally understand, and it makes sense, and all is good. And some of them don't agree with it, and that's fine too. You know, you're allowed to have your own opinion. You know what I mean?
That's one of the questions actually we had on the True podcast style. Did you start to ask some of these quick fire? You did?
Yeah.
What number are you on, Robert?
I don't.
Come on now.
Is
As the windows fog up.
Yeah, exactly. Is the app live yet? You've answered that already, Mick. The app is not. The app is currently in.
It's actually very close to. As coordinators, we've been testing it. It will be rolled out very soon to a number of hunters within the DMUs, and they're going to field test it themselves. And then, because we've been a part of the development from day one, so you know yourself, when you get something brand new, you try and debug it, yourself, and find ease of use. So we're doing that in the next couple of weeks, and I don't have a timeline, but would like to. Shortly after that, it'd be. And
it's, I know it's quick fire, but
you're all right.
Essentially, just on the app, the itself, that's just correlating data, numbers, areas, sightings.
Yeah, deer harvest numbers. We will. Oh, excuse me. There will be a tag system connected with that, and there's not very quick fire, is it? From my point of view, as I said, the IDMSG has proposed for an incentive, so this would be a form of receiving that and following that and tracking that. And so
okay.
Forth. Yeah.
Next quickfire. Are you bringing, that was, I suppose, again, you've slightly touched on it, right? But are you bringing in outside hunters to shoot? I think we've heard this morning, I got a message this morning, I'm not going to name any names, I told everyone on the thing, but it's a question we were asked, I'm going to ask it. There's been reports of, what would you say, pay to kill hunters being brought out, or teams being brought in to shoot deer in Ireland
No, absolutely.
by your
nothing.
company. Is that
Absolutely
correct?
nothing to do with FRS. And what my approach would be, could I have a look at that paperwork? You know, I'd love to see proof of this. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's hearsay, to be honest. But FRS, absolutely not.
So is it your responsibility to make contact with every hunter?
No, it's impossible for us. We have no access to database of who holds hunting licenses, so we can't.
Yeah.
You know,
Now the app, through building up people enrolling.
if people enroll and then they're passing on to their buddies, brilliant. You meet people at different organised functions and you connect that, but it's impossible for us to be able to make contact with every single hunter. What I would say is, look, if a hunter hears about the program, has questions about it, good or bad, contact the coordinator.
Yeah.
And they'll give you the facts and you make a decision.
I wouldn't mind. It's so easy just to pick up the phone and ring a coordinator in your area if you have got serious concerns. Because, look, we'll go through the questions, but I already know the answers to some of these questions. Are you looking after your own friends?
I don't have any friends.
Yeah, but we're friends now. If you want to look after me, Mick.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, we're not. And if a landowner, for example, contacts me and said, look, do you have the names of a couple of hunters who might be interested? I will look at it geographically, and in a lot of cases you get to know some of the hunters and see what time they have free. Some guys will say to you, I'm finding it difficult to manage the permissions that I have already. And you're not going to go and ask this individual or set up that landowner with a hunter who can't spend the time there.
You would think that would be everyone's mindset, but I find more and more that people just want land. They're not actually there to manage or help farmers. Now that's just my opinion. Right, next one. Is there a mystery list that the hunters go on?
There's not a mystery list at all. There is a list. So all hunters, landowners and stakeholders that enroll with the program, all right, they go into a management system that within FRS. So a database, if you like. There is no mystery list for any special treatment or privileged individuals or friends, if you have any. No.
Okay. I suppose there's no one really listening, so you can be honest with this one, right? Is this all just a big PR stunt?
It's not at all. It's not a box ticking exercise at all, right? So we're collaborating closely with the landowners, MPWS, Quilcha, who are fully committed, actually, by the way, and they have representatives on the DMSG, and I personally have a great relationship with MPWS staff, Quilcha staff here in Wicklow, and I find them very helpful. But it's not a box ticking exercise, because do you know what? There's people's livelihoods are being severely impacted in this area and in Wicklow, and look, all over the country with the high deer population.
I just want to touch on that for a second.
And I do take my job very seriously with that as well,
Yeah, so I touched on it earlier slightly about it affects farmers, but people don't realise how much it affects them. If that's their income, their farm is shut down there's a lot of suicide in the farming community, farmers in general. I'm not saying that TB and shutting down the farm, but it doesn't add to taking off their stress. Do you know what I mean?
It does not. Yeah, you're right. It adds to it, because look, it's a stressful job as it is.
Only Robert could add and plus, add and minus. So
we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
No, you're bang on. It is a stressful job as well, and it's a lonely job in a lot of cases. You know what I mean? And they're very dependent on the uncontrollables, the weather, wildlife. Do you know? And when I call out to farms and go for a walk with a farmer, and you look at the fence has been knocked down and grass, their most valuable resource is, in a lot of cases, is the grass. And when that's been eaten, and then you have all the other effects after that, it's not easy.
And I didn't mean to make light of that in any way there. So I know, but it was it's farming is balanced on a knife edge, and like that they've a lot of problems on the ground.
Yeah, it's perspective and perception.
Yeah,
you presume that it's grand and it's great and it's easy. Sure, it's only for deer. Yeah, but look at it from the farmer's perspective and the effects they have. Like, that's important. It's easy for us all to look at it through our own eyes. Put yourself in someone else's position, just for a little bit, and look what they're doing.
Exactly. Look, this is a question. I think you kind of answered it. Well, we did answer it in terms of external hunters, foreign hunters, and so on, being brought in from different countries. But I suppose I want to formally ask it: is it true that there will be shooting teams brought into areas to decimate hunters or to decimate deer numbers?
So, me, decimate hunters.
Decimate hunters. Yeah. I'm doing that all by myself, Robert. Yeah, so just, I suppose, is it a case that where there's, teams being set up to come in and kind of...
Absolutely not. There is no such thing. And this has, come up a couple of times. No, I don't know who's making these stories up, but it's hilarious. No, this is not. FRS does not have shooting teams, are not bringing in teams of people into an area and just shooting deer. It just doesn't happen. We're actually... The whole part of the program, we're not taking anything from anybody. We actually want hunters to shoot more deer. That's the actual facts of it.
Okay. Okay. I am. So this is from somebody that's messaged in. I am shooting on culture lands for over 30 years, and I achieve my cull target every year. I'm concerned for my safety if FRS intend to have unknown hunters shooting in the same area, nor have they communicated with me.
Yeah. Well. So what I would say to that is, there's a great reason to be part of a deer management group. If you're concerned, if there's landowners, close by bringing in, or you don't know, be proactive in being part of a deer management group. We talked about the importance of communication. So, get to know who's there, create a communications chain, and then deconflict as regards where people are going to go,
Just on that, yes. Mick, so he's in part of a lease. Can you put people in to shoot in that lease?
No, us?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
I didn't think so. It's Quilcha lease.
I can't even comment on anything to do with Quilcha National Park because it's their business.
It's nothing to do with you. Yeah.
No, that's...
Now, what's the next one? Is there truth? No, I'm not going to ask that question because I already know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I think we should cut it because it's 47 minutes
and we need to get to the farm.
We're still going to a farm.
Yeah, cool.
We're going to have a look around and then we'll be back to you.
We're going to pause it there. Right, and we're back here in a different part of Wicklow, K2 Alpacas.
That's right.
Joe Phelan. Joe, thanks for taking a time out. This is wonderful to be here. I didn't even know this existed. And this is a great, I suppose, advert for Irish agri-tourism.
So our main business is agri-tourism, so while I am a farmer, I'm not really a farmer, so I have some sheep because I have to have sheep because the Department of Agriculture don't recognise the alpacas as livestock.
Okay.
But my main business is alpacas.
Okay, so you keep the sheep to keep the department box ticked. Yeah. Look, as it always in Ireland, there's always a catch, isn't there? I suppose. Look, it's a different type of business, but it's one that's obviously vital to keeping the bills paid and so on. And I suppose we're here. Mick brought us up to shine a light, I suppose, on some of the challenges that you as a farmer face on a daily, weekly basis up here. Can you talk us through what is your biggest challenge here?
Well, I suppose if we go back, my business is all based around my alpacas.
Yeah.
So I currently have a flock of 73 alpacas. We also have 2 llamas, just to show you the difference. And everything I do is based around them. Okay. So working from their welfare backwards is the most important thing for us.
Yes.
So any of the staff here, any of the activities is all worked on from the animals' welfare backwards.
Okay.
Now, one of the things which I had identified as a risk to the business was TB. And I bought this farm just in 2019. And prior to 2019, I started the business in 2016. And prior to 2019, I had no problems with TB.
Okay.
Just the usual treatments for worms and parasites and stuff like that. So I moved on to the farm in 2019, and 2020, I got a hit with TB. We didn't know what was happening at the time.
Okay.
And there didn't seem to be any solid pattern in relation to what was happening. But by the time we discovered what was going on and We had put our biosecurity procedures in place, but we've significantly tightened them up since then to try and protect our flock even more.
Yeah.
But we lost about a third of our animals.
Wow.
Now, alpacas are very expensive, so
I can imagine.
like when I started off, I would have had the best national herd in the country. So I lost some really good pedigree animals, so these animals now are worth 10, 12,000,
Wow.
So it was a significant hit on the business, but we got through it. So after that, then and the problem in hindsight, if I had known it beforehand, I mightn't have bought this farm.
Yeah.
This is a very high risk area for TB, and we're surrounded by forestry.
Yeah.
Everybody was saying to me, oh, it's badgers and things like that. But we have proven conclusively that it's deer, because, once we were trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and we discovered it was TB, then we got the animals DNA tested to actually try and establish what strain of TB was in them.
Okay.
And in fairness to the guys, they were able to trace it back to a strain of TB in the local deer.
Okay.
So we know 100% it's the deer.
It's a deer is carrying it.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose on the way down, Mick was just showing us some of the ground, so we're kind of trying to build a picture of the type of challenge. And look, it's ground built for deer. There's large blocks of forestry, lovely blocks of agricultural in between, and even link forestries between forestry. So they essentially have a runway to the farms like yourselves.
And if you walk around the farm, you'll see spots there that they're basically like deer motorways, and you see tracks going right through, And also, I suppose, one of the features on the farm here is we have a pond right up on top, which I loved, but it attracts in wildlife, particularly during the summer when other areas have dried up. We have that lovely pond up there, and you'll have deer up in it,
Okay. And I suppose then, when you find what year was it when you kind of made the link between the deer conclusively? I know you probably had your thoughts on it before, but what year was it when you got the testing done?
We used to test animals once a year.
The animals,
the alpacas once a year, specifically for TB, and that was just a practice that we felt was good practice.
Yes.
Since we got the hit, we test them every 4 months now.
Okay.
I get no support. That's all out of my own pocket. So I have to pay my vets. I have to pay all the work and time that goes into managing the TB.
Yeah.
In fairness to the department, they have been very supportive, and they have taken the animals in to PM them all. So any animal that dies on the farm here now, no matter what it is, it goes to the department's backwesting.
Okay.
Originally Kilkenny, which was a bit painful, but now backwesting, and they PM the animals for me.
And have you, I suppose, in more recent times, I suppose you've been, Mick has come on board from FRS. Mm-hmm. How have you found the cooperation? Since I know it's only a new system, and I know we're all trying to kind of get our bearings as to how it's going to work, and we're trying to feed down the line to people listening here how it's working positively from a farmer's perspective.
Yeah. Well, you see, once I identified it was deer, the first thing I did was get a Section 42. Yeah. And then I got a hunter in, and we tried to cull
as many as you could.
Any deer that we could see on the farm. And it's not as easy as you think, So because we've had guys coming up here 2, 3, 4, 5 times and not getting anything. And then all of a sudden last week we had the guys up and they got 3, So, but we know there's more around,
Yeah.
So when I heard of this program, I contacted Michael straight away, because I said, oh, here's something that I'll do anything that will help and protect my business, So, for example, we have footbaths all around the farm. So when we go in out of fields, we dip our feet. We test our guys every 4 months, and we're very clued in to the symptoms of TB. So if any animal is showing any symptoms, we'll isolate them in order to protect the others. But there has been our second hit actually was, and I'm sorry, I'm going off point now. I just want to kind of
highlight
this because of the huge impact that it has on us. So we had a second hit, I think 2022, December 2022, whereas the first hit happened, we officially identified in July 2020. So the second hit, we were running a large group of boys. There's about 45 boys in together. And that in itself was a mistake because, I normally keep my guys in small groups in order to minimize the risk. So 10 to 15. But I ran all the boys together anyway. And I was thinking of splitting them, but I didn't. But there was one boy in there and he wasn't well. So first thing we did was we tested him for TB. He tested negative. And we tried different treatments because we weren't sure what was going on. And then we tested him a second time and he tested negative. But this stage now, the symptoms were beginning to show.
You had a feeling.
So we had, so by the time we had isolated him, it was too late. So out of that 45 boys, we lost 38.
Wow.
We lost 3 generations of studs. We lost the National Supreme Champion, National Supreme Reserve Champion, and loads of champions. Like, it was just horrendous, It was the worst Christmas I've had,
So not to try and make you emotional or anything, but can you just talk, because I'm looking at your setup, it is a serious setup, and I'm looking at all the teddies and fluffy. Is that all alpaca?
Yeah, this is all alpaca here, so it's all lovely and soft, So when you look at the boys at the moment with the wretched weather, they're like big wet sponges, but they normally feel like this. So you just feel one of these, they're really nice. Yeah,
that's me feeling one there.
Yeah.
And I presume you build up an attachment to the animals.
Oh, well, our business is agritourism, so we know all our alpacas individually.
Yeah.
We know they all have names, they all have personalities and moods, and because we do a lot of work with them, you build up a relationship with them.
So to lose,
I couldn't talk.
It must be devastating.
I couldn't talk to anybody for a couple of weeks. I was so upset over it.
I'm just looking at your body language now, Joe. It still hurts.
Oh, it does.
You can see it.
You
can see it. And from my perspective, when I called up, Joe's been very helpful. We're obviously trying to help the landowners, but from his perspective and me doing my job in an area where we're still trying to figure it out, he's been very helpful with that, to give us very open about his approach and what he needs, contact with his hunters, and it's still, this deer management group is really coming together well.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it'll just from here push on and be a major success, from my point of view.
I'm just going to finish up with this now in relation to, and the reason I'm kind of giving you that background is to show the impact it has had. The financial and emotional, what would you call it, impact has just been huge, I have a third of my business was meant to be breeding and sales. That's gone. So I just had to reinvent myself and find different ways to generate income because, as I said, literally a third of your business is a significant chunk out of your business, and I just can't breed. I can't buy in new stock because the risk is so high. Studs, good quality studs, like my National Supreme Champion, he was probably valued at 15,000 in the Irish market. He'd be valued more in the UK. But, to lose animals of that quality was just phenomenal.
It must be devastating. And I suppose the message that we're trying to get out, because we're sort of selfish as hunters, we think it's all about us, but we don't often see the impact that it has on the landowner. So that's why we touch base with Mick, because it's a new program.
Yeah.
There's people doubting it, there's people getting behind it. So we're trying to get the message out. And it's sort of a privilege to meet a landowner who's after going through this and being able to talk honestly and openly about it. The DMUs, are you finding it useful so far?
Well, yeah. So, sorry, I just wanted to set the scene and create, show you the impact that it's had on my business.
Yeah.
I'm lucky in that when I bought the farm, I looked to spread the risk here. So I had 7 outbuildings that were in various states of derelict. So I converted them to self-catering cottages. So that brings a separate income stream to the alpacas. So when Michael came along here,
be honest,
I said,
honest. Just come stand here. Be honest.
Yeah, no, I am. Yeah, so I'm always up front. I was straight, So when I saw this opportunity to actually get a coordinated approach to deer, because the deer are overrunning the place. When I came here first, I could look across in the fields on the hill across the way, and you'd see 70 deer up there in the evening time grazing.
Yeah.
Now they're a bit shyer. They're more, they don't come out as much.
Yeah.
But we know they're still there.
Yeah.
So when I heard about this, I said, oh, look, here's a good opportunity to actually really tackle this problem.
Yeah.
And it is a serious problem for us, you know.
Yeah.
For me, it's the impact on my animals.
Yeah.
For other farmers, it's their crops. It's, look, nobody has really any dairy or cattle around here anymore, you know, and fencing and stuff like that. But when I saw the program, I said, okay, I'll get on board and I'll try and gather support and momentum from all the local guys.
Yeah.
But I found a fair amount of apathy and suspicion and reluctance to get involved because they're all doing their own thing. And they were saying, oh, look, I'm happy. I can get my hunter in and we'll try and cull the deer. And they're shooting foxes as well because of the sheep. So I thought, oh, we'd get great momentum here and we'd get all start working together. But I found it very sluggish, you know, and as I said, each guy seemed to be more interested in just doing his own piece rather than looking at a whole coordinated approach.
Collaborative, I think we spoke about it just, we had a quick interview in the car and we spoke about the collaborative effort, I think, being the right approach because we need data. Yeah. We also need people to carry out the work, which the hunters. Yeah. But we also need farmers like yourself that can facilitate hunters coming onto, like, we're in high value animals here, so you don't want to be, you know, and I can understand from that perspective, you don't want to allow a friend of a friend of a friend to come in and shoot and so on and so forth. So I suppose that's the benefit, I think, to what Mick and FRS and the deer management units are trying to do, is to try and bring you as farmers and put them in touch with the hub, essentially, of hunters. And then if we can correlate the data around that, I think it can only be good for hunters who want to hunt and for farmers who want to. And I don't think as a farmer, I see the affinity you have to your animals. So I don't think any farmer wants to see any animal wiped off the face of the earth, no more than a hunter does. But when they get to the stage they're at now, I think it's posing a serious threat to both livelihoods and animal welfare.
Animal welfare is huge.
If I can jump in for a second, and a big thing as regards the mission statement from FRS with this, in the key words is like sustainable and balance is the key thing, you know, and we all need that, you know, the sustainability, but the balance between the wildlife, the agriculture, the stakeholders, the environment, the local population. Balance and sustainability, I think, are the key words within the whole thing.
Yeah. No, well said.
But look, I think it has to be coordinated as well, though, because, like, I purely by accident, I had one hunter and he was coming up and, you know, partially successful. But then the second guy approached me. Well, I get a lot of approaches here because our land is actually pretty good for shooting because it's very safe, you know. Yeah. But I got a second guy and he was actually shooting the next 1 or 2 farms to me as well. So I said, oh, well, there's that makes sense. There's an opportunity because he's not just restricted to my land. Yeah. And that gives a better opportunity for us to actually, you know, get more, cull more deer, you know. Yeah, and it looks from a hunter's perspective, I suppose, you know, a lot of us are travelling, you know, from areas that we're not from around here. So we're coming all the way up here, and we could essentially come to say to Joe's farm today and not see any deer, and then you have to drive the whole way back home. Yeah. So it's better, I suppose, if you have, you know, a hunter that has permissions on 2 or 3 adjoining farms, they can go into yours. But the other thing which I like about the approach here, like you're talking IFRS are talking about launching an app, or is that the department or FRS?
No, it's FRS.
FRS,
so, yeah, and that's very close to going live.
Yeah, I sorry to cut in. I think that will be a big help because, like, what I would do is I'd see deer, and I'd ring my hunter. Said I've seen 2 or 3 deer up there, and they'd come up and get nothing, you know. So I think it would be good to actually create for me as well. You know, when we see a sighting, we can see where we saw them, how many we saw, and roughly what they were, you know, so you then know, hopefully you'll get a feel for the way they're travelling, their movements, their hotspots, and so on, and it can be more targeted, eliminating that frustration as a hunter. Well, for me too, as a landowner, I'm seeing the deer, and the guys would come up and they wouldn't see anything. You know? So there's 2 sides of it. Yeah. I suppose crystal ball stuff. What would you like to see? If I said to you in 2 years' time, what would you like to see
out of this from your perspective? From where would you like to see it going?
Well, I think if we can get all the landowners either individually or collectively working together, I think that will be a huge positive step. The other thing which I'd like to see, though, is I'm a great believer in stats. So I work my business off facts and figures. And it's likewise if the staff come for any complaint about anything, I try and get behind it and understand exactly what they're complaining about. So that I know for sure. I work on facts and figures. So I want to see how many deer. We don't even know how many deer are in the location. You know? So I'd like to see a profile of sightings, a profile then of culls. So you're actually seeing that you're having a tangible impact on the area. And I've heard of things like drones that can see the animal thermal vision, that can see the populations that are hiding, you know, because we don't really know. Because my farm here is surrounded on all sides. So we're surrounded on all sides, but about a good third of the farm is adjacent to forestry as well. So the forestry is on the land, you know.
I think in terms of the app, we'd be a big supporter of that. I think the NERGC have one for our in terms of small game and so on, correlating all the data for birds and so on. And I think that's a huge step forward, because it's not a case where then you have somebody saying, because even myself, we're talking about retrospectively going out hunting, we've seen a load of deer, you know, how many? Is it 10? Is it 15? Is it 30? You know, so, and then what's a lot of deer to Joe might be only a couple to us, you know, so, or vice versa. So I think data is the key driver there. And I think if there's a central database there, I think that can only help, because it's good for the deer as well, good healthy herd. TB is not good for any animal.
In relation to TB in deer, okay, so the only bit of research comes from a couple of years back, and the department identified about, I think it was 21% of the deer were infected with TB. So I don't know if that's now up or down, but I think as part of the culling process that there is an inspection of the offal, you know, the lungs or whatever it is, to actually try and identify, well, are these animals clean or not, you know? So,
and I suppose, what advice, Joe, would you give to both to farmers and to hunters? So we're coming in from the hunting side. What would you like to see from us as hunters, more or less of? And what are the problems that you can see? You've seen both sides. I presume up here you have people knocking on your door looking for land permission, and you've also had hunters on your ground. So if you can answer that bit first, and then from the farmer.
Well, I suppose from my perspective, you know, when I see deer, I'll give my hunter a call. So I'd like to see them, you know, on site as quickly as possible. Just from a safety perspective, you know, just a quick text beforehand to say I'm coming. A quick text to say I'm going. You know, so because you know you don't want somebody, because I have guests here. I don't want somebody going for a walk, you know, in the middle of a shoot or something.
Exactly.
You know? But also, I'm responsible for my land and what happens on it. So I just like to know when somebody's here and when somebody's not, and they're finished, you know.
We actually, we were just, believe it or not, we were just literally after discussing that. Because we were chatting on one of our own permissions. Again, we had that conversation just this morning with Mick. We were telling him we sent a text when we dropped there, and he was saying that's one of the recommendations, I think, from the group as well, that there's a, you know, because it just makes sense, safety even from
well, then, you know, what I look for in hunters, I check that they have all the necessary licenses and accreditations, you know, to make sure they're doing things safely and properly.
You know? It's imperative. It's imperative.
So that's one of the things, because I've had loads of guys come up here, and you know, if they say, "Oh, I'd just like to shoot up here," you know, no proper licenses or anything, I'll never accept those.
So have all your documentation.
So have your documentation.
Exactly.
And like once you have it in place, then it works really well. There's no problem.
And from a farmer's perspective, then, you know, if there's farmers listening to this today, what would be your call to action for them? Would it be to get involved in the group? Would it be to be more proactive in terms of as a community, as a to try?
Yeah, look, you see, I'm not. I wouldn't say. Let me see how to word this. Some farmers might be very shy, about having anybody on their land or, or giving any information about what's happening on their land. I would say this is a solution to addressing a real problem, and that anybody who is interested in minding their land, their fences, their animals, their grazing, they should seriously consider working with as many of your neighbours as possible. It's no good one farm in isolation.
Hit and miss.
Yeah, because the animals don't have any boundaries. They don't care if it's Joe's farm or Alan's farm or whoever's farm it is,
Yeah.
So the more that work together, it gives greater scope for the hunters to actually do a job properly. Yeah. So
that's a good point, actually. We've one farmer, and he's in a middle of an area, and he has neighbours that don't permit hunting and don't like hunting, and that's fair enough too, completely understandable. And I remember approaching him because it was very hard. We're going up into a small area and trying to hunt it, and he had a huge problem with deer. The problem we were having, obviously, in the winter time, daylight hours are reduced and so on and so forth, and we recommended him getting a section, And as soon as I produced the paperwork he was, no, I'm not saying nothing. He thought he was giving me rights to his land. I was willing to help him do it, but it was, so it's funny you should say that. I think there is probably a lack of understanding, which I think from Michael's point of view, that brings more of a professional and a peace of mind to farmers as well. If they're talked through it from somebody that's not, like, we've vested interest, we want to come up and hunt deer. So I suppose from that perspective, it might create a pathway, I think, that'll alleviate some of those problems.
Yeah, look, I don't know what some of the issues are, because if a guy's just doing it as a hobby and he comes up and gets one or two deer, maybe he's happy then for a couple of months.
Yeah.
For me, the deer problem is there, it's real. And I want somebody who is able to work with me on a kind of systematic basis to actually, clear out as many deer as possible to actually get it down to a manageable level. They're overpopulated at the moment, and they're running right. They've no natural predators. And they're just out of control.
They've long lifespans. They've good mortality rates. So it's I suppose it's the perfect recipe for the problems we're seeing here today.
Yeah.
I suppose if you don't mind, we're going to put up a few links to this wonderful part of the country. We wish you the very, very best in the business. We hope what's happening here will alleviate some of the stress. And we completely empathise. We were talking about just before we come in, the emotional and farming is always balancing on a knife edge, between weather and the issues we're talking about here. So I can only imagine some of the issues, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much for taking the time out to talk to us.
Super. All right.
Right, we're back in the blue studio, we'll call it. We're back at base, and that was very interesting, wasn't it?
That was, Joe's very good. Brilliant business, and just nice guy, and a lovely spot too.
Yeah, K2 alpacas in Wicklow. Check it out if you haven't. I've gone home with some little presents for the daughters. Beautiful wool and a fascinating enterprise. I suppose the biggest thing I took it for, I think we were all been talking about it on the way back here, has been when he started to talk about the losses to his livestock, to his finances, to his farm, to his livelihood. You could see the despair in his face, and I think we actually touched on it before we met, Joe, about the impacts and suicide rates in farmers and the mental stresses and farming being on a knife edge. You huge losses there.
Feel it, couldn't you, when he was talking?
Without a doubt.
The atmosphere changed. Definitely changed. You could hear it. Definitely, without doubt.
So I suppose it was good for us, and thanks again, Mike, for bringing us along in the. We came back by your what's it called, Deer Management Group.
Deer Management Group. Yeah. We kind of basically had a drive around it just to show you. I suppose physically it was easy for me talking about and that, but it's always good to see
on the ground
what it looks like, the terrain, and the mix of different farming methods, different land, forestry, waste ground, or is there any such thing as waste ground? Sorry about the use of that, but rougher unfarmed ground, maybe is better use of language.
And also the challenges that's facing, like probably until you do that, and like we've drove by a lot of these types of areas before, but you don't really contemplate. So after talking to Joe, then you're driving by, you're a little bit more conscious now. There's a huge big block of forestry. There's a bit of agricultural land. There's some maybe some dairy, some sheep, or some, as in Joe's case, alpaca. But so now you can kind of realise the consequence and how difficult it is to pull this together. You know, if you've one hunter that's shooting on one farm, maybe another hunter that's recreational, or maybe not hunting there as often as maybe he was back in the day. We were talking about the aging population in hunters.
And as we see, as you see as well, you know, as we have our families and
life,
you know, kids and activities and.
Well, you were just talking. You're building a camper at the minute, and I was asking you, are you getting out hunting? I have to finish the camper. I have to do this.
Exactly.
You know, your family commitments, and so we all go through phases where we don't get out hunting as much. So I suppose it's to maybe have a backup to that, and maybe and if there was an additional hunter that could, you know. But I think there's a point you wanted to reiterate. I think you
very much so. There was two main things that jumped to mind. It was and look, it shows, we mentioned it, perception, perspective. When we were hearing Joe's perspective, he talked about having the hunters within the deer management group, and he is a hunter that hunts on neighbouring land. And what is important, I think, for me to communicate is that if you are a hunter within a DMG, that doesn't mean you have free rein on any farm within that deer management group. You can still only hunt on permission that you physically and personally have got from the landowner. You know, it's not like, okay, I'm in so-and-so deer management group, that means I can hunt on any land.
That farmer over there, he's in the group and he's amenable to, he's a hunter and I can skip across.
Absolutely not. I'd say that would annoy all landowners very, very quick. No, you can still only hunt on the land that you've got permission on.
But I think it does open up the possibility now of communicative and collaborative. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So if the likes of Joe, and I think I kind of asked a pointed question at the end, what we'd like to see, but from his point of view, I think if Joe talks to Jimmy down the road and Jimmy's happy with Mick and Anto and Rob,
correct,
and say, well, look, I've no hunters in here. How do you find the guys? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So now it's.
Yeah. And wouldn't that be our be deer management group scenario and outcome? And you know,
ideally it would. But it'll require, if I'm being honest with you, I think for this to work, really to work, and you recognise it anyway. You spoke off air. It's the need to get the hunters on board with this. It's here now. There's a deer management strategy, so
it's happening. Like it's happening, and it will. Look, it's going to take work. Everybody involved, hunters, landowners, stakeholders, coordinators, we all will have to put the shoulder behind the wheel a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Just to get it off the ground. They're not all going to work perfectly, but 100% of the people that don't try are doomed to fail. Do you know what I mean? So
I think I've changed my, because I'm still like, you know, it's in the early stages. You're in your job in a couple of months now, really. Yeah. Since June last year, was it? June. Yeah. So essentially in its infancy, right? And being honest with you, coming in, I was still on the fence. You know, what does this entail for a hunter? Because although we did the podcast with Michael, which was very informative and so on, it's almost like what would you say? I wasn't great at theory in school. You know, I was more practical and so on. Do you know what I mean? But when you get out, like today, I think was beneficial because you can see it.
Picture paints 1,000 words.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so and we can kind of see the likes of Joe maybe opening up to you guys as an organisation now that they can go to and utilise and say, here, look, I need a little bit of help here. Have you people we can recommend? If it works like that, I think it's going to be a great thing for hunters and for farmers alike. So let's hope.
I thought Joe brought up another point, a challenge for him that I hadn't seen, because I've had a lot of great interaction and positive interaction with the landowners, because majority of them, or all of them that come to me, are dealing with an issue with deer. you know, so I'm there to help them and they want to work together. Where Joe was approaching some of his neighbours and he was coming up with a little bit of resistance. So there was a question asked earlier about how am I finding the uptake with landowners. I found it really good because nearly them all have an issue, where it was interesting to see from Joe's perspective, you know, he's approaching his neighbours, see they want to join and they don't really want to. So that was a good other side of the coin to see, you know.
If it doesn't affect you, it's not really your problem.
Yeah.
It was actually great, like boots on the ground, seeing the challenges that you're facing, Mick. Yeah, but it was also great to see the positivity, the changes, like helping people.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying it?
I am enjoying it. I have to say I am. And we were driving out of K2 Alpaca there and I said to you, Rob, there's no other way I would have met that man. Do you know what I mean? And experienced an alpaca farm in Wicklow. Like, do you know, it is brilliant. Like, you're meeting all sorts of people. There's challenges. Do you know what I mean? But, do you know, anything that's ever any good has been a challenge. You know, things that come easy, you know, you don't get the same enjoyment out of it. Do you know?
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Well, I really enjoyed that there today. And Joe's very informative. If you get a chance and you want the kids to learn something, I'd recommend going up and having a look. Even just that 10-minute conversation that we had with him, the amount of information he was able to give me about alpacas and a really cool shop and all there. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Are you happy enough with that?
And I really enjoyed having you here, lads, having a look, getting an appreciation for what the programme is about, as we said, on the ground. It's been good to share what we've been doing with you. If there's one thing that if there's one little nugget that I can communicate, will be like, we're not trying to take anything from anybody. That's kind of the key message, I think, here. Yeah. From an FRS perspective.
I think that's everyone's worry. So you've said it on record, clear as day. I hope that puts everyone's mind at ease. I have one last thing.
Sure.
It's not really a question to you. It's more to the audience that listens. Like, we have a fairly loyal army of followers, and there is a meeting happening on the 19th. FRS aren't actually hosting it, but Mick Craven is speaking at it. Lads, listen to me, don't listen to me, but don't let yourselves down. If you're going to it, be respectful. Of course, if you have questions, ask your questions, but don't turn it into something that it doesn't need to be. What do you think, Anthony?
Oh, I concur with that. I think, look, we've learned, you guys would know better than most. You are military men, but everything is solved through dialogue, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think if that's done in a respectful and like we're all hunters, so if someone gets out of hand, it shines a bad light on something that's been getting a bad rap for quite some time. We're trying to change that. We're trying to show a positive light in it. So absolutely. I mean, if there's questions here that haven't been answered or asked and you want to ask somebody, and I would, this is what I'd recommend is we can hold to account. You know, there's coordinators around the country now. Pick up the phone. Their numbers are all recorded on. You just have to look up, I think, the FRS website.
They're on your. There's a link or there's
a link
all the numbers on your social media.
Yeah.
Give us a call. Look, we happily take phone calls and answer any questions. And if we can't answer that question, we'll go and look for the answer and communicate it back.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That'd be my kind of thing, is just to let's the lads are putting their hands up and saying, you know, we're here to help, we're here to do. So if that's the case, reach out to the lads, you know, and if they don't get back to you, well, then you can go to send an email or go. It's like any chain of command. If you're not getting satisfaction, which I don't think, I would be doubtful if you don't get a call back. But if you don't, then there's levels there. You can send your emails. You can. I think Mick Keegan's details are on there as well. So, but I know for a fact we've found it nothing but. It's been easy to communicate with you guys. You know what I'm saying? We've always got a call back. We've always had answers to our emails and to our queries. And what I liked about it was this is not necessarily an easy conversation to have. I know it kind of flowed easily, but I know there's some awkward questions in there. And in fairness to you guys, you've never shirked them. So
Well, look,
that's all I can say.
The way I look at it, answering tough questions makes me better. Do you know what I mean? If all the questions are easy, I'm not really going to improve. It's the questions that I find difficult, I need to go and research, I need to find, and
have the
that's
answers.
only going to make it better.
Yeah. So look, let's. I think it won't be the last time we're in touch, Mick. You haven't seen the last of us, unfortunately.
No
I'm sure out of this there'll be a stream of comments and messages. A lot of them will be positive, a lot of them will be negative, as is always the case. We can only ask what we were told to ask. I hope we've asked as much as there is a few queries in terms of the recent invasive stuff, but I think that's for a different day, which we might delve in. That'd be nearly a podcast in itself. But listen, thanks a million. It was an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed the day.
Same as. Thanks a million, guys, and keep up the good work. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks a million. Over and out.